everyone, it's Jacquelyn Melanik. Welcome to Chain Reaction, a show that unpacks and dives deep into the latest trends and news, breaking things down block by block for the crypto curious. This year, we're doing monthly series diving into different topics and themes in crypto. Last month was NFTs, and this month we're focusing on blockchains integrating AI. We're speaking to a number of founders and startups about how they're looking at the two technologies, what are the best ways to bring AI on chain, and the benefits that are yet to come from it. Hope you enjoy. Today's guest is Dee Goens, the co-founder of Zora. Zora is a platform and protocol that helps developers and creators bring their ideas on-chain and on Ethereum through an open and shared environment. The platform has minted over 4 million NFTs and has over $300 million in secondary sales to date. We think Dee is a great guest to kick off this month's AI and blockchain series because we just wrapped up our NFT series, and now we're moving into this, which is something I know he's working on bridging the gap between with his co-founder, Jacob Horn. Anyways, before I give too much away, Dee, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jacqueline. I really appreciate you inviting us.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to have you too. And I briefly explained Zora in the intro to start, but it's your company. Where did the idea come from and how did you even get into this?
Yeah, so we've always wanted to help creators to capture more value from the work that they're putting on the internet. The way that we're approaching Zora today is very much like a new social network. So to us, we actually say that like Zora is a new social network. We help creators, brands, and artists to monetize or better monetize their content engagement. We do that through this magical process called minting. I'll get into more of that later. But minting also helps the artists and the creators that use Zora to deepen the relationships that they have with their audience. And so we currently have 51,000 active creators on Zora as of the last month. In February, we actually had just under 500,000 monthly transacting users, which is pretty crazy. I think it was like 478,000 or something like that. And just in the last 30 days, creators on Zora have actually made over $1.3 million just posting their content on Zora. And so we're a social network where you can get paid to post your media on our network by fans and audience members that are super excited to engage your content.
All right. Well, those are the updated numbers. Beats out my intro. But where do
Yeah,
you
growth is
get
real.
like, that's an amazing thing, right? How do you kind of find community and where did this growth come from? Was Like, it on the was it on ground the or word of ground or mouth? word of mouth?
Yeah, great question. I think it's a combination of factors. We've been around for the last 4 years, and
Mhm.
the majority of that time has been spent directly with on the front lines with creators. So trying to build the best tools that we can and make it as easy as we can for them to bring their work on chain, as well as for collectors, making it easy for them to engage this content in a really exciting and engaging way. And so a lot of the sort of sweat equity that went into sort of 2 to 3 years of building for these communities of creators and collectors has sort of compounded into the growth that we see today. It's a combination of sort of manual onboarding, but also like some pretty lucrative and enticing incentives with our protocol rewards model. And so last year, we actually launched a new economic model called Protocol Rewards, in which creators who post on Zora will earn anytime somebody clicks the mint button, which is effectively like sending that creator like a super like. You could think of this
Mhm.
kind of like spending your coins on TikTok in order to have Pinky Doll wear like the crazy
Mhm.
cowboy hat, or sending a badge on Instagram to get featured in the live. A mint is kind of like a super like in that same way, only you can super like any post on the internet, i.e., any post on Zora. So we launched this new economic model in which creators were actually able to get paid without pricing their media when they posted on Zora, and it turned out to be pretty sticky. Creators really love it. Like I said, they made over $1.3 million. It brings them back to the platform, and then the economic model also includes some affiliate and referral rewards, which have helped to grow our distribution. And so, if you're a developer that has built a platform on top of Zora in order to find new collectors or new people to engage with content, you actually get paid per mint as well. I think you get a guaranteed 000, 111 ETH for every mint that you find through your interface. And so now there's like tens of teams, I'm sure it's going to be hundreds of teams that are building on top of the Zora protocol in order to push the content as far and as wide as it can, or as far as wide as they can, to new collectors. And so I think it's a combination of, we spent a lot of time figuring out the needs of this particular
Mhm.
community. We built and created value around those needs. And then we also built an economic model that is positive sum across the board, rewards the creators, provides an incentive for distribution, which has helped us to grow in a major way. I
Right.
guess the last bucket too is we actually serve a pretty unique customer or user at times, which is like the brands. So if you have a brand like Coinbase or Layer Zero, who have really,
Mhm.
really big audiences, they do a lot of their product marketing on Zora. And so they're bringing hundreds of thousands of new users and new collectors to the platform who are excited to engage with branded media. And so we've been able to grow significantly from those mints, but and fortunately have been able to retain a lot of those collectors.
Mhm.
D30 retention yesterday at Zora was 73.8%, which is like absurd. I
Hi.
get just 73.8% D30 retention is absurd. Like that's
Yeah.
wild. And yeah, that's what we've got as a result of this cool system rewarding creators and collectors for participating. So
Mhm.
yeah, I said a mouthful. I'll pause there.
No, no, you're totally fine. When you say minting, are you saying like this is an NFT mint or are you using the term differently?
Oh, pretty close. So I actually use mint to mean like post. Like you could think,
Okay.
let's demystify the word mint.
Because
So
when
as
I
a
say mint,
creator,
I think of it's like minting an NFT on the blockchain. So it could be
I mean
bought or
that
sold. So
happens, but I feel
yeah.
like people get caught up in the jargon. So like minting
Hmm.
really is just posting. Like when I click the mint
Okay.
button on Zora,
Yeah.
I'm just posting to the Zora
Hmm.
social network. When I click the mint button on any other marketplace, I'm actually just posting it to that marketplace. It just so happens that that picture is now made with the crypto material that allows it to be transacted, owned, and sent on a blockchain, right? But it's really just
Hmm.
posting. And then on the collector side, when I click the mint button, I'm really just liking it. Like I said earlier, it's kind of like a super
Yeah.
like you would see on TikTok or a super like that you would see when you send a badge on Instagram. By the way, TikTok did $10 billion worth of sales. Like consumers
Hmm.
spent $10 billion on TikTok last year, and a quarter of that spend, like I guess that's like 2.5, $3 billion, was actually on coins to engage or super like content that they like. This isn't too
Hmm.
different. Where it's like as a collector, when I click that mint button, I'm actually just super liking the video or the podcast that I just watched, and it has a little bit
Right.
of money that I'm sending to the creator to support them. But like that's how I
Right.
like to think of it. It's like it's posting and super liking.
Yeah. But the margins on like these Web2 platforms are just like awful for creators. And I'm sure it's like way better
Well,
for
yeah, I think TikTok keeps. I think don't quote me on this because I don't have the hard stat in front of me, but I think on the way,
it's a
so like on
lot.
the
It's
way out, they
majority.
keep
Like
like
YouTube is one of
50%.
the only ones that gives a fair amount
Yeah, it's
compared to
crazy.
other creators.
Which
And that's like a big thing in Web3, that's what's trying to be fixed for sure to like monetize or help
exactly.
monetize more for creators.
That's why we're
Anyways,
so excited about protocol rewards. But yeah.
there you go. No, everyone loves rewards. Everyone
But
loves
to hone
points
in on
and,
the theme
for
of
a
the
good
month,
Mhm.
reason. How do you and your co-founder, Jacob, see blockchains and AI working together on a high level? And what role specifically can creators, NFTs, and so on, or AI generated artwork play in that?
Yeah, Jacob actually just wrote an essay about a month ago called AI
Mhm.
Plus. You can check it out on zora.co/writings/AI hyphen plus, or if you just go to zora.co/about, you can find it at the bottom of our about page. He put like the whole sort of blockchain AI intersection pretty simply in like two statements. It's like the first one is crypto wants information to be on chain so that it can be
Mhm.
valued and add value to the system. And then AI wants information to be on chain so that it can be freely accessed and utilized by the system. And so like we're on this like kind of collision course where like we want to put more stuff on chain in order to effectively um, add value, create value around that information, data, media. And AI actually needs access to that information in order to train its models, right? So it's like it
Mhm.
also needs some sort of economic or value system to help to fit that need. And so his essay actually it lays out a pretty compelling framework with sort of three pillars of a system. And like just zooming out, this is sort of how we've approached AI generally speaking at Zora.
Mhm.
We've actually got like a pretty long history of AI at Zora. Like back in 2022, we actually helped Holly Herndon and Matt Dryhurst to mint the Holly Plus models on Zora, like literally the entire voice
That's
model. I
why we
think there was
got
a
you on.
singing model. Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
So there was a singing model and then a voice model, both minted on Zora. And so that's on like the model side. On the tool
Mhm.
side, we've also helped teams like Pepin Art to build their sort of generative tooling that allows people to imagine derivative artworks of Jack Butcher's iconic Pepin collection. And
Mhm.
we've even had other like, platforms and tools built on top of Zora, like titles, which allow people to create remixes and their own models on a mobile app, all built on Zora. And so we sort of have this historical pedigree, if you will, at ushering in the sort of the intersection of blockchains and AI. And this is the framework that we've used to sort of approach it. And sort of like those three buckets, if you will. There's the tools bucket or the models bucket, which is sort of like all of the actual models that help us to create these amazing artworks or all of these hallucinations, as they say for DALL-E. So you have all of the models, right? We're helping to bring those on chain, like with Holly Plus. You've got all of, and that includes the training data as well. And then you've got all of the sort of tools, which are effectively the interfaces. So if you think about Mid-Journey, this is the Discord bot. If you think about what we're launching today at Zora, it's the Zora Create Flow, where as of today, you're actually able to create new images with Stability AI's API. More on that later. And then you've actually got the output, which are like the images, or let's call it the videos from Sora, the OpenAI, video generative platform. You've got the outputs as well. The way that we think is all three of those buckets, sort of the models themselves, the tools, and the output, are eventually going to find their way on chain. And we're actually trying to build the ability for all of these things to live on chain. And it's like, what's the upside of putting them on chain? One is like actually the attribution, two is the actual ownership of our training data, as well as the economics for the output. Fred Wilson writes a lot about this, where whether it's OpenAI and their New York Times lawsuit, or if it's any of the companies that have effectively helped to produce the data that these models are trained on, that's like a whole business, and so we're going to need some way to own that data on chain, which is where that cool crypto material comes in again, where it's like, oh, I can actually mint my training data. So we want a way to bring that on chain. And then the output is proven to be extremely valuable. Jacob cites an example in his essay of Robbie Barrett's 2018 super rare artwork selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've even seen output like, AI film creators like Ja, a pretty iconic and increasingly established filmmaker from the Zora ecosystem. He actually sold a film called Helmet City as an open edition, or even the trailer, and made like 6.5 to 7 ETH on that. And so the output is valuable too. We need systems effectively that can help to bring all of these things on chain. And so that's what we're trying to do at Zora, and how we imagine our sort of place in ushering in the transition of AI on chain.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I think on that note, what is Zora currently working on with AI to expand its platform's functions? I mean, you guys have been in the space for a while now. Obviously, Jacob's essay kind of cites that, and we'll put it in the show notes too for people. But what are you working on today that is kind of bringing it to that next step?
Yeah, so today we actually launched the ability to create using AI models in the Zora Create Flow. So as of today, you can go to zora.co/create, and you can actually you can go text to image to mint. So you can use the Stability AI API in order to generate a new image in our Canvas tool on our Create Flow that you can then mint. What makes this super unique is that we have actually built in splits, on-chain splits, for the creators of both the Stability AI model, which we're using to generate our images, as well as FAL, the system that provides us with the inferences. And so this is actually a 0 to 1 moment on the first passive income stream for the creators of large language models like Stability AI, where now you actually have the ability to capture value from your model's output. As I said earlier, there's filmmakers who are making films that are making 6 to 7 ETH. There are artworks that are getting generated and sold for hundreds of ETH. It'd be great for the model makers to have a way to capture value. We've actually built that into our system at Zora. And so we've got programmatic splits for Stability AI, as well as FAL. And then we're also taking all of the prompt data. And so when you type in your prompt into the little text box on Zora to imagine a new piece of media that you will mint, that prompt is actually stored on chain as well, along with the name of the model that you used for provenance reasons as well. And so we have all of the sort of attribution coming on chain along with the output. And so we actually just launched that today. I think the tweet is going out while I'm recording this podcast with you. And so you're kind of hearing it first, which is really exciting. But yeah, we're really excited to sort of usher in an era where model creators, not just the creators of the output, but the model makers themselves, also have a
Mhm.
way to reap the rewards of the creativity that they're helping to produce.
To follow up on that, I had a few questions. First of all, what is splits? I'm not an
Oh
AI
yeah,
expert. I don't know what splits are. I'm sure some of my listeners might not. And then you also used another term, I think it was foul, maybe. Can you kind of explain what those things are just for us? And then we'll go into a few other questions.
yeah, sure. So I'll start with splits. So splits are the programmatic on-chain way that we share earnings with different participants in a mint on Zora,
Okay.
or really on chain. And so, let's say, for example, you and I, like Dee and Jacquelyn, decided that they were going to mint this podcast episode and they wanted to go 50-50 on Zora's protocol rewards. By the way, we should
Mhm.
definitely
We
mint this
should.
podcast episode. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it'll
would
be a
be
first for us.
oh, what? 0 to 1. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So the way that splits would work is since you and I collaborated on the podcast, when we go to mint it, we can actually set the payout, i.e., the rewards that we receive when people super like our episode.
Mm.
We can set the payout to be split between us automatically. So like 50% of the rewards would go to you, 50% of the rewards would go to me. What makes this unique in being on chain is that that happens automatically. There's not any sort of like legal or contractual document you got to go sign. There's not like some fancy middleman that we got to go ask to hold the funds. All of this happens programmatically and transparently at the time of mint. Makes it super unique. And so, why this is important for the model makers and the inference providers, FAL, just to take a step back, they're just an inference provider. Now,
Hmm.
I am not an AI expert by any means either, but they help to infer the results from the model to meet what the user is expecting effectively. There's probably a whole deep dive you can do on inferences that we'll need, but that's like the sort of high level understanding that I, as the
Yeah,
non
yeah,
PED
we're
person,
learning.
have,
Yeah.
right? So in the case
Okay.
of the Zora AI tooling, both Stability AI and FAL are listed as split recipients for anything that is created using the tool. So let's say we decide to generate a cover for our episode using the AI tool.
Mhm.
Stability AI and FAL will automatically receive 10% each from the rewards that we earn when people super like that post on Zora. Follow?
Yeah, 100%. That's
Okay,
super
cool.
interesting. With the percentages, is that made up by the people who post it themselves or mint it, or is that kind of like preset?
Yeah, so we have set a minimum split with the Stability AI team and the FAL team at 10%. If you were to create something on Zora that wasn't AI native or AI related, you could actually set that split yourself. And so we've had mints before where we've set it to 10% or 20%, or maybe even sometimes we really just want to we want to bless somebody, right? So like Zora will actually set its take to 0%, and then we'll pick
Hmm.
a random creator out in the ecosystem and they get 100%. And so you can actually set it to what you would like.
All right, awesome. What do you think that the response has been like from the community, developers, and the AI like startups that you've been working with? Like, is this something that you see a lot of demand for? And how has that kind of shifted?
So I would say a lot of demand from the creator side for sure.
Hmm. They're all separate
I think,
buckets. So yeah, feel free to like look at it
yeah, so
separately.
like from the creator or consumer side, like I said before, we saw a lot of adoption
Hmm.
of the AI tools by Zora creators. People who didn't have full production capabilities but wanted to make films were able to use these tools in order to go 0 to 1 on a film.
Hmm.
People who didn't have the ability to have scores were able to go 0 to 1 on scores and all of these other things. I was able to go 0 to 1 on really cool images, right? And so the consumer demand from the creator side has always been there. I don't think, I think the splits that Stability AI and FAL receive, FAL is super excited about this. They sent their wallet address.
Hmm.
We know a lot of those guys from previous Coinbase days. They were stoked. I think they were excited. And like it's
Yeah.
basically free money. Like these are good economics for the model creators. It's like, hey, here's a new way that you can capture value from your amazing outputs, right? So it's kind of all upside for them. For some of the larger teams, like model makers, I think we're still grokking, just like, wait, this is kind of crazy in terms of the potential here. And it's like,
Yeah.
how do we handle this new form of income? in revenue. I don't think
Yeah.
that they had expected to be able to make money on the output the same way that they make money on, like, let's say a subscription or like a license to the API. And so this
Hmm.
is actually like a net new thing in many ways. And so I think they're excited to innovate.
Right.
When we talk to the Stability AI team, they're really pushing the whole open source thing. They're really excited about more and more people getting more access to the models. They're excited to see us innovate. I think they're curious to see how these economics play out long term.
Hmm. What other ways do you see crypto and AI kind of being complementary technologies to one another? Like we have this, there's
Mm.
surprises from the people you just mentioned, that this is even possible, but like, what are you looking at to the future?
Uh, yeah, I think the future is kind of, it's gonna get crazy,
It's
right? It's
crazy
gonna be,
futuristic world we're going to be in. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I genuinely think it's gonna be wild, and we're gonna live in a world where
Mm,
it's going to be very valuable to have sort of verified, provable origination of media, right? Like
yeah.
really knowing that this came from a cryptographically proved D could be
Hmm.
increasingly important in the future, where the ability to sort of create a mirage of me is like
Yeah.
is fairly available to people. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity for crypto to really help to verify, authenticate, and prove the ownership, not just of like the models and data and information, but like the origin of the media itself.
Hmm.
I think that's super important. And then I also think, like, this is like my personal take on how I view sort of the models. Like, as a person who really loves using like image to image, as well as like text to image models, like I really find there to be a beauty of like learning how to use the model. And I liken it to like learning how to use an instrument.
Hmm.
Like, to me, Mid Journey is like a Fender guitar, or it's like one type of piano versus Dolly being an acoustic guitar and a whole another type of piano, but they both
Hmm.
produce music, in this case, images, right? And I actually think there's a world where like bringing on the sort of like the Fender like patent for that guitar, like that's like minting the model to me,
Hmm.
where I think we're pushing into a place where um, sort of crypto's ability to prove ownership and aggregate or like create the propensity for value seems to be on a collision course with like the IP system. It's like crypto will do for the IP system and copyright what it did for fiat in the financial system. And it could
Hmm.
be that like that is most needed today, where I could go generate an image of the Pope in a Montclair bubble and you might think it's real. Like and so yeah, I
Honestly,
do think
yeah.
the ability for us to
Maybe
have
not
sort
that
of,
way.
this like mathematical, cryptographically proven origin of media, source of media, ownership of media, and
Hmm.
value of media feels increasingly important when our ability to proliferate media is about to hockey stick thanks to these tools.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it reminds me of like I saw this like TikTok the other day and it was talking about how older people on Facebook can't differentiate AI from real photos. And I'm not saying anything towards older people, maybe I can't differentiate as well, or maybe I can, but you know
Yeah,
what I mean when it like you need to validate these things, or be able to like prove that it's like valid and that you created it or that you created this with this technology. Like, either or, I
exactly.
think that's totally fair. When it comes to using this, how easy is it for someone to use? Is it like they could just type it in like people do on Chat GPT, or is it harder for someone who knows nothing about this?
Nah, you can just type it in like you do on Chat GPT. So if you go to zora.co/create, and you click, there's a button that says try canvas. I'm doing this
Hmm.
blind. I don't have it up on the screen, but there's a button that says try canvas. If you click
Hmm.
that button, you'll see a little text box at the bottom that says imagine, and you can type in there and actually imagine an image that you can then mint. I like to think we're going text to image to mint. It's kind of like
Hmm.
mint is now a part of that flow. You know how people are like, it's image to image, it's video, it's
Yeah,
text
yeah,
to image to video, like all that stuff. I feel like the last step of that whole thing now is just like we're going text to image to mint,
yeah.
and you can do that on Zora, and you can get started with just an email. Like, you don't need. We spent a lot of time last year abstracting away some of the more
Hmm.
complex,
To make it
crypto
more
components to these
accessible.
flows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like for newcomers to the space, like you can actually sign up to Zora with just an email. You can get started creating for free. You don't actually need any ETH in your wallet to get started creating.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very approachable new user
There we go.
experience for
So
like a
the people
first time user.
listening, think about what you want to create, and we'll take a quick break and before we get into the rapid fire segment. And we are back. Now it's time for our rapid fire segment where I'll ask Dee some questions. Hopefully, he gives us some quick responses. To
Cool.
start, Dee, what is your favorite NFT collection right now?
Wow. My
First
favorite
one that came
NFT
to mind. Yeah.
collection right now. I mean, the first one that came to mind is nouns. I just always will
Mm,
forever love nouns. It's like I think good things in crypto should win. Nouns is a good thing. It is trying to do earnestly good things in crypto. I want to see nouns win. I think they can win. That's probably the one that was top of mind. And then the other one was I'm Tired of Being Hyper Surveilled, which is a collection by an artist that I'm very, very close to, Hino. He's got a
mm.
new album that he's releasing, and the whole project is actually getting um, debuted or shown at South by Southwest this week and next week. And so that's very top of mind for me too, is Hino's collection.
That's sick. I love
Yeah.
that. We had Maria Shen from Electric Capital on, and she also talked about nouns. So it feels
Oh,
like
cool.
that's
Heck yeah.
a hot topic for sure. Um,
Yeah, I like nouns a lot.
yeah. Okay. Next question. Would you rather have a collection that's limited in quantity, say like 1,000 NFTs, because that's limited in this
Mm,
space, or
okay.
massive like 1,000,000 NFTs?
Massive million NFTs. I'm trying to reach as many people as we can.
I like that.
Like,
Okay.
I'm also not I, am not like a super fine artist, driving scarcity. Like I would love for us to have as many people actively minting
Mhm.
as YouTube has actively viewing stuff every month, which is like 2.5 billion people, right? Like
Mhm.
I want a lot of people to I want NFTs to reach a lot of people, you know?
Grow the pie.
So
Grow the
yeah,
pie.
exactly.
Okay. And then what's one word you'd use to describe the present day of Zora?
Wow, that's such a good question. One word is hard. Um, like I think we're in a really, I don't know, like we've been around so long. Like, wow, this I wouldn't say this. I can't say this on wax, but like we've been around
Mhm.
for 4 years. I would say like we're ready to graduate. Like that's how I
Ooh,
feel. Like we've been around for a while. We've seen
Mhm.
auctions, one of ones, editions. We've seen checks, punk auctions, you name it. We've seen so much in the
Mhm.
space. I think we are well positioned and right on time for this moment. To do the most amazing shit that we could have ever dreamed of for creators and people on the internet. Like we're
Mhm.
very even like today, like I'm doing an interview or a podcast with TechCrunch about AI and crypto the day that we release an AI tool. Like that's pretty wild. So like I think we're right on time. Maybe that's how I would say it. Right on time.
Right on time. One
Yeah.
quick word, right on time.
Yeah, I talk fast. I'll
And
mumble it.
no, you're totally fine. And to
I'm
follow
gonna think about
that,
this for
what would be,
days.
well, it's going to be a follow up here too, is what would be one word, or I'll give you a sentence because I think a word was a little tough to describe
Yeah.
what the future of what Zora will be.
Ooh, internet scale.
Okay. Okay. I like that.
Or I don't. I feel like this. My Virgo brain is kicking in. I'm
I'm
feeling
a Virgo
all types
too.
of. Oh, really? Cool. Early
Yeah.
September, late September.
Early September.
I
This
am.
is,
I'm 9/9, September 9th.
oh, I'm the 12th.
Nice. Same neighborhood.
Wow. Look at that.
Same neighborhood. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say. Or maybe there's all sorts of like cool words I want to think of now, but I do feel like we're right on time for crypto's growth, like to actually hit internet scale. And like Zora is, it's like not crypto for a lot of people, but
Mhm.
it is, which is pretty cool. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
right
mean,
on time.
and looking at
everything,
Zora's
like
platform, however
Mhm.
you want to phrase it, like I really do feel like it has this cooler futuristic vibe than like a lot of NFT platforms. And when you look at it, like I don't know, it just feels more like hypey, like in a good way. Like
Oh,
it's
cool. Yeah.
unique, it's original. I don't know. And
Oh, thank
like
you so
I
much.
think it has like its own brand. Like if I saw some art, I
That's a
would probably be
win.
able to say that it came from Zora opposed to, I don't know, OpenSea or Magic Eden or
Wow.
something where they have so much like general NFT art that,
Yeah.
is more that side of things. So
Wow, I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. We've made a
Yeah.
conscious effort in the last couple of years, particularly, to build an experience that feels a little less like
Mm-hmm.
a marketplace, a little more social, a little
Mm-hmm.
more approachable for like the non crypto native user. And so to hear
Yeah.
these things, it's like it's really encouraging. I really appreciate that, and I'll send
No, of
all of that
course.
love back to the brand marketing and design team too.
Yeah. I guess the follow-up question to that, we're still in the rapid fire for the people listening. They're
Hmm.
probably like, what happened?
Yeah,
But
sorry.
no, you're good. Brand or community, which one do you think is more important? I know they both are. This is something we've talked about with the NFT guests, but for you guys, like really, what are you honing in on the most to kind of keep scaling Zora in that sense?
These are good. Nice, Jacquelyn. These are good.
Thank you.
um, I would say that I think, this is so hard. I feel like brand has a unique ability to represent, galvanize, and attract a community.
Hmm.
Like, it's kind of like the flag, if you will. And like, yeah, you need the early initial group, like the sort of, you know, founding crew of that community to form and congeal and like really turn into something that is durable and long lasting. But they also need the sort of flag or banner to carry that makes them feel community, like the sort of like thing that signals their unity. And I think like crafting that with intention, crafting that like with the intention of like honestly, earnestly, and innovatively representing those people, like that community, like that
Hmm.
can carry you pretty far. And in fact, like our brand building exercise, if you go back to 2021, was actually done alongside our community. We did the entire first round of Zora's brand design on a YouTube live stream with Ben Pierrat and his design team to create the Zorb. Like that's where the Zorb got made. That's where our word mark got made. Like we literally did it alongside the community. And so
Hmm.
it's so difficult, like it's almost chicken and eggy, like which one comes before the other, because they feel
Hmm.
so like intertwined with one another. But I do think like a good brand, a good symbol, a good flag can galvanize a group of people to do amazing things.
Hmm.
um, and so I kind of want to say brand, just because that's how
I
you
would,
can.
yeah.
Yeah, so I want to say brand because I think that's like
Yeah.
an instrument that you use to build and grow community. So it's like
Hmm.
a one is a means to the other almost.
Yeah, I
And if
agree
you
with
do
that.
community without the sort of overarching brand, you might wind up in the sort of Dow conundrum where you don't exactly know which expression, be it visual, be it language based, you don't know which expression best encapsulates it. So it's kind of nice to have that flag coming in because it sort of sets a tone. So I'm gonna go with brand as an instrument.
Okay. And the last question, I guess this could kind of be like a segue out of rapid fire because you'll probably give a longer answer, is my guess. But which one do you think is more true? That AI needs blockchain more than blockchain needs AI, or that blockchain needs AI more than AI needs blockchain? Like, which one do you think kind of really is holding on to the other more so? Or do you think, no, you're gonna have to
Mm,
answer it that way. I'm not gonna
yeah,
let you
yeah,
say it's
yeah.
a mutual.
I appreciate the yeah,
Yeah.
remove the cop out.
Yeah,
um
right.
I'm gonna go with the former. Like AI needs blockchains, um, and I think it needs that in order to bolster its narrative around sort of uh, safety and verification and authentication and
Hmm.
sort of provenance and all of those things. Even if you think about like the way that like open source models could work, I was just on a call earlier today with Steve Jang from Kindred, and he was reflecting on a conversation he had recently, where it's like the sort of lineage or web, like the Darwinian evolution of some of these models, is also cool to see publicly. And there's currently
Hmm.
no real way that you could do that. If the models were on chain and each variation of the model was effectively recorded as a sort of derivative, and we could see all of that publicly available on chain and see which model is actually generating more rewards or has more, that would be an amazing level of legibility. And so in on top of the sort of authentication and verification that we need just to, I, I'm not here trying to fear monger or whatever, but like there is like an element of like, how do I know
Hmm.
this is actually a real thing from a real person? How can I trust some of this media? And I think crypto is uniquely positioned to cryptographically verify ownership and origin of information. Um,
Hmm.
and I think crypto could also survive without AI, just in its current trajectory. Maybe I don't think it needs it as much as like I think society really needs
Well,
AI
because we're
and
like
crypto to
cryptographically
intersect.
proving things. Yeah. I
Yeah,
understand
that
what you're
like
saying for sure.
that we need to know. So I feel like they're on a
I
collision
guess
course, really.
as they're kind of
Hmm.
integrating, how can crypto remain decentralized enough to withhold that ethos of decentralization and no like centralized power while still making sure that as AI is adopted more and more, even though AI in a sense isn't really one specific person or entity, you could argue like at the end of the day, they can pick and choose what the
Mm.
response is. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure you've seen all the news recently, or even with
Hmm.
like ChatGPT, like the way they certain like reply to things, or with Gemini, like Google's Gemini. Um, it's in a way like a technology, but on the back end there are people. So how do you kind of keep it decentralized so it holds
Yeah.
on to like that crypto centric thing that we all know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think being able to see, because like right now, a lot of like the best and most widely adopted models are still in many ways in like closed source ecosystems. They're not accessible to the broader public. Um, and part of that is why you saw, platforms like an X be like, hey, we want to turn off our APIs here because like these dudes are training their models on our data and these models are closed source. We can't even see or contribute to them. Like and again, I'm no expert, so this is all under a disclaimer. But like I do think in that world, and similarly so to the stories that you're alluding to, it's very nice to really understand and see the underpinnings, inner workings,
Hmm.
and sort of configurations of these models. Like it'd be great to, and this is where again, like inference providers too can come into play, where like it'd be great to have different lenses even on top of models. So I think like I'm excited to see the models on chain or see more open sourcing of these models so that we can all have the opportunity to investigate and inspect them in a way where we can make an informed decision. Do I want to use model A or model B? Similar
Hmm.
to my instrument choice earlier, where it's like I might want something that sounds a bit, warmer, fuller body. Like I might want different tones, different strings, different materials, different woods for this
Yeah.
guitar versus that one, right? And so I think we need greater transparency around all of the inputs that you're describing, which help to produce the outputs that we may see in order to make these decisions. And putting them
Mm.
on chain is a way for everybody to be able to make that public decentralized level of consensus or achieve that level of consensus. And then it's cool too. We'll be able to see also, at least on Zora, we're starting out with just the SDXL API and like stability or stable diffusion and FAL, but like we'll be adding additional models and additional model types, including some that are a bit more specific to, uh, you know, types of data, types of photography, types of images, etc. And so I think you'll also start to see an increasing amount of um, like the proof is in the pudding and like what models are people choosing, right?
Hmm.
Like are people actually choosing publicly and on chain transparently model one versus model two? And like are they choosing that because these outputs have those different weights that you're describing, right? Like I actually think equipping the end user and consumers with as much information, legibility, and transparency as we can, which like putting these things on chain to some extent does, is going to be one of the most important things so that we actually understand like what it manages the user's expectations. What am I actually getting
Hmm.
out of this? So then if I show up to the model and I type in one string expecting to get the color blue and it shows me the color red, at least I
Hmm.
know, oh, this model's trained to give me the opposite of what I say, right? Like just knowing that kind of stuff would be good going
Right.
in. And I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of people know any of that. They show up and, you kind of are surprised each time by the serendipity of whatever you see,
Hmm.
and it's to the point where like they call them hallucinations. So it's like I kind of like to know a bit more predictably what I'm gonna see. Um,
Yeah.
and like how you
That would make
arrived at
sense.
that image. So I think more transparency there is really important. Putting more of these things on chain so that we can see observably like who's choosing what is another part.
Hmm.
Um, And then also like that opens up an opportunity for us to kind of put our money where our mouth is, which is like, hey, if you're waiting these things to produce outputs which I don't agree with, I'm going to go spend my money on models that produce outputs that I do agree with.
Sure. Yeah, take your business elsewhere. Given that you have a history in risk management, I'm curious, like, what are your, we're going to bring it back,
Yeah, I was like,
years and years
wow,
ago. I mean, we
crazy,
brought it
crazy,
up in the
scary setup. Here
intro,
we go.
what are your ethical or risk concerns for NFT artists specifically using AI, if any?
We sort of addressed some of them, which is like attribution
Mm, mm,
and shared economics, like making sure that the outputs that are created are giving the right amount of due to the models that help them to create them, making sure the creators of the models as well as the creators of the outputs can actually, benefit from these things. Um,
mhm.
which hopefully can help us to dissuade or avoid any sort of like, oh, copycat risks, oh, this person stole my thing, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um,
I mean, we already kind of see that today without AI,
yeah,
people complain
exactly.
about that
Remixing is a
anyways.
thing.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
definitely.
we've done as much, and I'm sure there's more that we will uncover that we can do. But when you're creating on Zora, at least we try to do our best to make sure that there's some element of automation to share economics with original creators. And so even in our Canvas tool, we're actually able to remix an NFT that you have in your wallet. We still
Hmm.
build in an automatic split to the creator of that NFT in the event that you decide to use it in a remix. And so I think there's a lot of intentionality that has to happen where it's like you have to be aware of the let's call it like upside or like the not upside. Like you have to be aware of the opportunity to earn from posting this work on Zora and those earnings coming at the expense of a creator that might be the source creator of your remix, right? Like you just have to be very aware
Hmm.
of that and build in ways that these creators can have shared economics and attribution. Like that's like the one thing that we want to always make sure that we're doing as best as we can.
Yeah.
And then um, yeah, I guess that's on the Zora side. That's like that to me is probably like the most principled place
Hmm.
for me to
No, that's
focus on.
totally fair. I think to wrap things up, Dee, I would love if you could leave us with a piece of advice, maybe something that you've carried with you throughout your career or related to the conversation today.
Yeah, sure. I actually wrote a blog post called Start Here, which has 9
Hmm.
pieces of advice in it for anyone who's looking to get started on chain or anyone who's looking to get started creating.
We
Um,
get one piece here, one of
yeah,
the nine.
I would say don't be precious. Like use these chains and Zora as a place to express your wildest, freest, most full express like creative expressions. Free like I actually think that minting on Zora, posting on Zora, like I would love for that to be a place where people can have radically free expression. Like you can just really post anything. That's why we support so many different um types of creation, photography, writing, song, music, you name it. So
Hmm.
don't be so precious or feel like you have to like figure out the perfect mint. Maybe that's the advice. There is no perfect mint. The perfect mint is your next mint. I think that's like the best way to say it. Like just actually mint. Take that first
Hmm.
step. Like try it out. Because it's simultaneously like a really big deal, but it's also just when you first do it, like you finally do it, it's like not that big of a deal at all. So yeah, don't be afraid to like actually make that first mint, make that first post. Don't be so precious. And this probably
I
is true
love
of any
that.
content creator or any artist. Like I used to make a bunch of music, and there's a bunch of songs that nobody's ever heard, and it's like, are they even good songs? And nobody's heard them. I
Hmm.
got to share them. So I think to that
Yeah,
point, it's like, yeah, share your work, post it, feel free.
love
Don't be
that.
so precious.
Dee, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all of this with us.
Yeah, I hope that it was interesting for the listeners out there, and yeah, check us out on Zora. Thank you,
Perfect.
Jacquelyn.
Thanks again. We'll be back every week with the top news on the crypto ecosystem. Catch us on Tuesdays for interviews with experts in the Web3 space. You can keep up with us on Spotify, Apple Music, or your favorite pod platform, and subscribe to our companion newsletter, also called Chain Reaction. Links to the newsletter and the stories we talked about can be found in our show notes, and be sure to follow us at chain_reaction on Twitter.